Good evening, everyone. My name is Kazumi Kita, Vice President for Education. And so I think you look a little nervous. Don't worry, I'm very nervous. Because you know that Yamashita-san gave us a big pressure to speak English here. But you know that I spent 1 year for about 30 years ago in Australia. But you know, after 30 years, I forgot to speak English. So I gave a message to speak. You give opening remark. I remember my English very hard. And after that, so maybe I can give you my opening remark. And also, this opening remark is instead of director. Yes, director of International Education Center, Yabu Sensei. Okay. Anyway, first, thank you very much all for coming to the second annual English Speech Contest. I'm very happy to be here. And maybe so you know, you have heard many news from the internet or TV. Now, COVID-19 has been covering all over the world. And this pandemic makes us endure many restrictions on what we can do. But today, we can hold the contest because academic staff here prepared the contest with their great effort. I would like to express my gratitude to all staff here. Thank you. And also, I would like to give my thanks to all students here, maybe so 9 students, giving us your English speech. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughtful English speech. Maybe so you feel very big pressure, but don't worry about that. I also feel the pressure, but be relaxed. Please relax. And don't hesitate to speak English. Please relax. After this contest, maybe I hope you will be able to improve your English and also improve your ability to express your thought in English. I wish you good luck, and I hope you will do the best. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about whether SNS makes us happy or not. I think SNS makes us happy. It is because we can gather information and collect something what we like when we use SNS. Also, we can connect with people who have similar tastes and fill up our timeline what we like. However, SNS often makes some weird societies. To make ideal timeline, we have to follow people who post the information that we like. A lopsided timeline where together becomes a type of society. Different village can be different village have no way to interact with each other. So we don't have any way of knowing something without having that information in your village. So, in the village, we don't have to face that we don't want to face, but we have to face it is because we live in the society, not village society. SNS make us happy. It is because using SNS we can make ideal village society. And but we have to be careful. Happy in the small and narrow world is really happy or not. So we have to get out a small and narrow village and change the village into a wide world based on variety things. In the wide world based on variety things, we can find a more variety happiness in which can be found in the village society. Surely, in the wide world, more than a village society, we can be happy. That's all.
We can't deny that in the present day, social media has played a big part in our lives. We use it for chatting, sharing photos, expressing our feelings, watching cat videos, stalking our exes, the list goes on. Although there are great things that we can do with social media, but we must keep in mind that there are always two sides of the coin. When I first started on social media, it was very eye-opening for me. I could chat with my friends, read news, following celebrities. I was on social media all day, all night. But as we all know, too much of anything is never a good thing. I remember one night, I was looking at the clock and it said 10 p.m. And I was like, I'm just going to sleep. But before that, an animal clip for a good night's sleep wouldn't hurt. So then later I realized I ended up watching the whole zoo and ended up sleeping at 3 a.m. Oh boy, I had the wildest dream, you could say. Or sometimes too much of an online social life can cause you to forget your reality if you're not careful. There are times in the past that I remember going out with my parents, and instead of enjoying the moment, I put my phone between us instead. Those were the moments that I regret the most, especially that now I am far away from my home. Or sometimes I feel sad when I read sad news. I feel angry when I read hate comments. I feel small when someone comments something bad about me. Or sometimes I even thought to myself, should I just quit social media? What's the point of it all? But in the end, I realized I like watching silly videos. I like reading my friends' movie reviews. I like taking food pictures. But the most important thing is the feeling of knowing that someone we know, we care, or we love is doing fine and is watching on the other side of the screen. Knowing that we can make our parents happy when we share a cat picture and when they see it. Knowing that we can reach to an old friend in an instant, even though we haven't talked for so long because we were busy chasing our dreams. These are the little things that makes our lives a little more vibrant, a little more enjoyable, and I think we can at least appreciate that. So, how has social media impacted my life? Maybe it's the way I take my food pictures before I eat. Maybe it's the way I share my photos online, knowing that one day I will look back and appreciate the memories that I have. Maybe it's the way that it made me feel more connected, more compassionate to my family, to my friends, to the world. And even though there might be times that it will give you bad habits or forget your reality for a second, but to give up those feelings or the joy that it makes, it would be a big mistake for me. I guess my friends can expect to see more food pictures from me for a while. Thank you.
The Tokyo Olympics was held in Tokyo during the COVID-19 emergency, which can be called the pandemic Olympics. It not only excited the audience, but also made us nervous. The postponement of the Olympics for 1 year had caused the opposition from the local people one after another. More than 11,000 athletes and thousands of reporters, coaches, and officials could reach a city without causing a dangerous public health emergency had become a concern for many people. The results are considered to have to live up to expectations. The competition continues in strict agreements and regular tests. The host country has won a record number of medals when the home team thought the Olympics are more fun for everyone, even if there is no fans in the seat. Olympic spirit is still alive. These scenes are still fresh in memory. The empty stadiums, on the podiums, with athletes wearing masks and hanging the medals around the necks, or after the game, the music connecting the winners with their families through Microsoft Teams. Although there were a lot of struggles in this pandemic Olympics, there are still some people and things are still encouraging. In a unique year, many athletes had to find a new and creative way to train during the isolation. The athletes in Tokyo proved that they can overcome almost any difficulty and created some of the most inspiring moments of Olympics. I tried to pick a few moments that inspired me. One is that Simone Biles, who picked the team all-around competition and showed the world. However, she could, and she didn't hide the fact that she withdrew due to mental health issues, which may shock the reporters and followers alike. She could just hide behind a press release or team spokespersons, but the athlete walked to the podium and discussed publicly why her mental health is so important. Biles could have succumbed to being the spokesperson of Olympics, but insist on doing what is best for her. Although the conditions of this specific Olympic were tough, the athletes have overcome those difficulties they have never experienced in history. This also encouraged me. Forge ahead, don't give up because of any difficulties, and finally you will see the dawn of victory. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shibata. and I have a question for you tonight. How has social media impacted your life? To varying degrees, it greatly affects my life because social media has the power to influence my thoughts. Social media are primarily internet-based tools for sharing and discussing information. But the question now facing humanity is, what is going to be done with all this technology? As is so often pointed out, social media is a double-edged weapon which can be used equally for good or evil. Now it is being used mindlessly for both. To begin with, social media can lead to mental health issues. Take me, for example. I once read nothing but the good sides of my friend's life on Instagram. Hence, I started questioning myself, why can't I have a life like him? That proved to be my undoing for a year on end. As a result, I felt like my life was missing something. I felt like my life was missing something. It rubs me up the wrong way. Suddenly, I realized that I was taking time off from living with myself, from the search for what is meaningful to me. On the other hand, social media allows us to communicate with others, regardless of the time and place. Regardless of the time and place, I mean. For instance, I was unable to speak a complete sentence last year. So I started using social media to speak with an Englishman who lives far away from me. Consequently, instead of becoming an English learner, I have already become an English speaker. It is certainly clear to see how social media make my life easier. It is necessary to recognize that these technologies were created to facilitate our lives and remain critical. I'm sorry. There is no judgment from outside which can replace the judgment from within. We can find the answer only when we quiet our envy in our heart and can use social media to connect with people. At long last, I gathered all the courage in the world to make a conclusion. Don't try to be what you are not. Just be happy and always be who you are. Thank you.
It has been 3 months since the Tokyo 2020 Olympics ended. While Japan won the most medals ever in many competitions, there were many dramatic scenes in the Olympics. I was particularly impressed with the opening ceremony. The Japanese appointed Japanese game music for the entrance march, and the ceremony itself was full of Japanese charm. However, I think Japan should not do such a country-specific Olympic. That is the uniqueness of Olympics. And I would like to talk about the COVID-19 part of them. This Olympic was originally held in 2020, but was postponed for 1 year, not cancelled. The Irish and the government thought of the Olympic as a proof of overcoming COVID-19. Which the Prime Minister advocated along with the Reconstruction Olympic, which had been significant since 2011. However, is this really overcoming COVID-19? I don't think so at all. From April to June, even though the number of infected people was in thousands almost every day, they weren't thinking about canceling or postponing it, and were preparing to do it on July 23rd. I think there was something that should have been done earlier. For example, increasing the support for medical institutions. The Olympic Games were held mainly in the Kanto area, which, even though there were many infections in that area, and there was a possibility of overwhelming the medical system. After all, from the end of July to August, when the Olympics began, the number of new cases of infected people were announced to be in the tens of thousands every day, and we were threatened to overwhelm the medical system. It is an exaggeration to say that losing COVID-19 rather than overcoming COVID-19. I wonder why they couldn't understand the social situation in Japan and the opinions of the Japanese well. But the Ayoshian's government gave priority to it. Even with COVID-19. Therefore, I think the postponement until the COVID-19 had subsided would have reduced the Japanese opposition to COVID-19 or to the Olympics. However, it is over, and the Paris Olympics are on the horizon. So, if we could respond to the COVID-19, everyone would get excited and say, we have overcome the COVID-19. Thank you.
The topic I talk about is, does SNS make you happy? What do you think? I think most people say yes, but my answer is no. SNS have it is many bad effects for us. According to research, SNS affects mental health. There are a lot of people's posts on SNS, and we compare to these posts. So we feel anxiety, depression, inferiority, and so on. When I was a high school student, after I took mock test, I often checked SNS to know other students' feelings or how other students could answer. Most people who post to SNS got a good score, so I felt anxiety and inferiority. And it has a bad effect on studying too. People who use SNS have a lower test score than people who don't use SNS, even if they study hard. SNS is memory ability is reduced by using SNS. These influences are very terrible, but I think we should fear addiction the most. When we use SNS, dopamine is secreted, and dopamine makes you happy or feeling good. But this mechanism is same as drinking, smoking, or gambling, and so on. I think you know this action is not good, and addicted to this are dangerous. Do you have ever used smartphone in bed before you sleep? It greatly reduces the quality of sleeping. Another example, when you are having a hard time, it is easy to escape by using SNS because of dopamine, but it is not rare to feel more pain when you look at others' happy posts. And SNS has people who are addicted to SNS tend to aggressive, and because there are a lot of aggressive posts, so we are unknowingly affected. Alcohol is not bad, but too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun, but too much gambling is dangerous. SNS is same. SNS is not bad, but too much is bad. I think if we really want to be happy, I have to do what we really want to do without being swept by the temporary pressure. Thank you.
And again, my name is Charusiri, and today I would like to start with good evening, everyone in this room, and maybe good morning to some of the friends all around the world. So how do we know how to say good evening or good morning? Is that because social media connect us in a global scale? So nowadays, social media play an important role and influence every aspect of life, from the first blink of eyes, along with the first light of the sun, all the way down to the end of the day. We all observe an uncountable amount of social media, in both intentionally and unintentionally. So some may say it is potentially due to the smaller size of our planet. In other words, Earth became a global village due to the social media impact. We can know about any part of the world within a minute through our personal device nowadays. And development in technology advanced the purpose of social media in many ways. Some may say, okay, first let me bring all of us back to the 90s. We all are excited about the new technology called pager, the small device that have like a short message to connect all of us. And however, early 2000 smartphones come and it's changed everything. The whole pager, the whole thing is changed. Nowadays, we cannot live our life without Instagram, Facebook, and email. So back to the point that you connect to your friend on the other side of the world within a split of second. Today, we may be limited just by the size of the Mother Earth itself. Also, social media is the best way to spread knowledge with a least consumption of resource and manpower. As we may say, the one step of man, one giant leap of mankind. We could not agree more on the benefits mentioned. However, there is a very dark and dangerous side of this as well. Multi-studies have stated the relationship between heavy social media usage. It can increase depression, anxiety, worry, overthinking, loneliness, and many things. The young generation nowadays hardly distinguish between realism and unrealism. So, however, all mentioned points only the surface of social media negative impact. Let's focus on the main topic, how social media impact life. For this open-ended question has no easy answer. I would like to bring the question to the next level. Can you imagine your life without social media? And probably not. Somehow it's already impact all of us such a high level already. Okay, today actually I would like to talk about time. Stephen Hawking proposed that time itself began when it's the Big Bang. The universe and time itself began about 15 billion years ago. And since then, the concept of time has been never changed. However, recently, generally speaking, the concept of time could be defined as the continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future. Put in simple way, 1 hour from this moment, 60 minutes. What will happen? Each person may have different answer. The meaning of the past, present, and future have direct relation to action that occur, is occurring, and occurred, and is going to be occurred, which considered as a consequence of time. However, the concept of time and space today are applied in both real world and digital world. The digital database, social media, prolong the existence of things around us. It can alter the speed of time as well as freeze in a moment in time. So imagine you plan to go for a trip next year. You may start from searching for information. Okay, the plan, you go. You visit some place. You have a very nice feeling about that place. You take a picture, you post. That lasts forever. On the other hand, you're planning to have a very nice dinner someplace. You search for it. You eat it, you enjoy it, then you post it. And then the one who come after, you see your response, see your suggestion, so they follow you. You see how the time has been consequences, effect, past, present, and future. That is the concept of time that affect the social media in my understanding. And I would like to say thank you for you all to be a part of the impact and a part of the future. And as I mentioned earlier, they have two sides, and we are in global scale. But I believe that in the close future, it's not global scale, it's universal scale. And when that time comes, may the force be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does SNS make you happier? Good evening, everyone. I'm Maekawa. Would you believe that 1/3 of the entire world is using SNS? Through our devices, we can chat with friends, watch videos, and look at photos, and we can even build a new connection with people and expand further. I'm sure that the existence of SNS has lifted up our standard of living. However, I've been questioning myself, is SNS really making me happier? I think yes, but sometimes no. It depends on how we use that. Depends on the way we use it. We use SNS. I sometimes regret using my smartphone. I waste my time just watching stupid videos again and again. Haven't you ever experienced the same way? The same thing? Anyone? Maybe it's just me. Even when I grabbed my phone to do some work with Google, I was scrolling through Instagram before I even noticed. I was like, why am I on Instagram and just mindlessly scrolling? Then I get stressed. Actually, it is said that people become stressed when they face the fact that they've been wasting time. Thus, we have to eliminate filler information. Now, I talked about the passive way of using SNS. How about the active way, like uploading photos of a nice looking cafe or posting about your accommodations on a trip? I often tweet about the movie which I was impressed by, to introduce its outline and tell people what the movie is like. Then I receive good feedback and replies like, "Oh, I've watched it recently," or "Nice, I'd like to watch it next time." Through these experiences, I realized that we can deepen our relationship by sharing information on SNS. So what I noticed here is that regretting the wasted past lowers your happiness level. The SNS tropes like mindless videos are trying to draw us back to SNS again. That's why we need to see if the information you're consuming right now is beneficial to your life or not. On the other hand, actively giving information to others gives us back the feeling like we are connected to society. Then we feel happy. In the end, the most important thing to be happier is to take initiative and act independently, being aware SNS is only one tool, not the world. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. And I'm really kind of nervous because I'm being the last one because everyone was so good. So okay, today I'm also going to talk about how SNS affects us. I think if you think about how SNS influences on us, I bet you can think of many negative reasons. But do you know how SNS influences us in a good way? SNS really plays a big role in our everyday lives. Like, not only do we express ourselves in the online world, we live in that world in a specific time. So here's the question: does SNS really make us happy? There are many studies implies that SNS use may have a negative impact on our well-being, such as trigger depression, or decrease satisfaction, or reduce self-esteem, and etc. Then you might wonder about how about the positive impact, which I will talk a bit later. So, as humans, we naturally possess a basic need to belong to a social group and form an interpersonal relationship with others. For that matter, SNS is a service as a tool and space where we can satisfy this need. So I was reading, other day I was reading about the research about SNS, and in that paper there are two types of SNSs. I think Shu talked about this. It's active SNS use and passive SNS use. Active SNS use is like such as posting or commenting on these things, and passive SNS use is browsing other people's posts. People tend to post photos of themselves like look attractive and share their life with others, such as what they have purchased or where they have visited or like what kind of things they have experienced. So eventually people experience great satisfaction and pleasure when their self-image management goes well. So this was an active example of active SNS use. Then for passive SNS use, browsing the other people's posts actually keeps us updated with our friends' emotion or opinions and lifestyles. And we may experience a vicarious satisfaction from the information reflected in other people's posts, like reading about the things we can never experience in person. So that study assumes that this vicarious satisfaction would contribute to our well-being. So what am I trying to say is active SNS use and passive SNS use may increase our subjective happiness. Not only that, there are even studies have shown that getting likes for Facebook posts results in a release of dopamine, which is a brain chemical associated to pleasure. And also, the reading sad or moving posts can might release oxytocin. This is a love hormone which makes us feel protected. So I hope you can see that SNS does have a good influence on us. So of course the most important thing is how we use it. So my last word is use wisely, play smart and have fun. Thank you very much.
Okay, so good evening. Thank you very much for joining this speech contest. So you did a very nice job, very good job actually. You try to maybe very hard to practice the speech and also make a story very clearly and very organized. So it's a very, very difficult decision for us to decide, who is first and who is second and who is third. But a very, very small difference I can find in the speech. Okay, so probably some speech need to more practice. Okay, practice. So sometimes I deliver talk in a special, very scientific conference. So I did maybe I don't know how many times, maybe a week or so. I try to practice the speech, talk. And practice is very important for you to familiarize your story, and also how to deliver the story. Also, another thing, very important thing is analyze the audience. Okay, who is the audience? Who has to be listen to your speech? So this is very important, consideration to make a speech very fine, very well. So but today I realized I found some speeches are a little bit borderline because of the less practice probably before this contest. Okay. Also, I should say that if you like to your practice more effectively, you need to find your friends to listen to your story. Okay. So practice by yourself is not so good actually. So you have to, if you can find a very good friends to hear your talk, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours. So that would be nice, very, very effectively. So, but anyway, so I enjoyed your story and also your speech today. So I was actually impressed by your very good delivery about your story. So I enjoyed much. Thank you very much for having me here as a judge. So try to practice English more now. Okay, thank you very much.
Third prize award, Maekawa, International Mass Event, Gandai English Speech Contest. Director, Charusiri. Congratulations. Is this a handkerchief or something? Congratulations.
はい、ありがとうございます。はい、ではお届けします。はい、使います。はい、3、2、1。
Second prize award, Sebastian, International Mass Event, Gandai English Speech Contest. Director, Shibata. Congratulations. This is mud taps. Okay, very good.
はい、ではよろしいでしょうか。はい、取ります。いきますよ。はい、では取りします。はい、3、2、1。 first place award, Deemad, International Non-Student Gandai English Speech Contest, effective official year. Congratulations. Now the cards and voting. Okay? Congratulations. Okay, ではまたお送りします。You have a lot. はい、よろしいでしょうか。はい、ではお取りします。はい、3、2、1。はい、じゃあ取ります。はい、3、2、1。